Interestingly, many people think that design and fashion are two separate spheres. Of course, sometimes fashion kind of straddles and moves away into the realm or rarefied realm of art, but the kind of fashion that we wear, the kind of streetwear, garments, mass-produced objects that we put on ourselves are definitely design that we can wear, therefore fashion. I'm Paola Antonelli. We're at the Museum of Modern Art, where I'm a senior curator of architecture and design, and we are in the exhibition Items is Fashion Modern, which I curated. I've been at MoMA for the past 23 years, and when I got here, I noticed that there was no fashion in an otherwise amazing design collection. So I started keeping a list that I used to call garments that changed the world. And of course it had, the white t-shirt, the Converse, the Nikes, just everything, Levi's 501, all the garments that you think are the pillars of modern design when it comes to fashion. And that's how the exhibition happened. When it comes to streetwear, understanding the influence of individuals like Kanye or like James Jebbia, the owner and founder of Supreme, it's hard to underscore how important these role models are. I find it a phenomenon that one really has to look at closely. And many of these people really have a lot to teach. Also, women like me that don't really go crazy and line around the block for the overnight to get the new sneaker, but still want to understand how people react and click. Because this exhibition is about the 111 items of clothing that really had an impact on the world in the past 100 years. So streetwear figures prominently. It's hard to convey how long it took us and how many arguments and heated conversations it took us to get to those 3 trainer sneakers that are in the exhibition, which are the Converse All-Stars, the Nike Air Force Ones, and the Adidas Superstar. The Converse were the first sneakers that were attributed to a star. So in a way, they were the first branded and signed sneakers. And also they represent an early move from the basketball court into the street. The Air Force Ones were the first sneakerheads, iconic brand, an iconic example, because we all know the history. They were put out by Nikes. They were not really that successful. They were put out of production, and then 3 stores in Baltimore created the craze that took the I-95 corridor on the East Coast and that made them into collector's items worldwide. And the Adidas Superstar, because they went from not only the basketball court, but the street basketball courts into hip-hop culture, and they became this kind of runaway success that bridged all the different spheres. So we decided that these 3 together and individually really represented a phenomenon that we all suffer from. I don't know about you, I lust for sneakers. The graphic t-shirt is another staple of everybody's wardrobe. There's nobody that doesn't have a graphic t-shirt in their drawer. But of course, it has a history. There was a first graphic t-shirt, and it has some absolute important pillars. To establish those, we actually counted on a pretty exceptional advisor. I hope you won't mind my saying it, but it's James Jebbia from Supreme. We asked his help. And we already had a list, but it was a little too long and a little too dense, and he helped us streamline it. And in the end, I think we have a perfect lineup. We decided to do, instead of having all of them put on the wall, we decided to do an amazing projection. We took a white t-shirt, and then we have the best AV crew in the world here at MoMA. So they really were able to not only project onto the t-shirts, but to map actual t-shirts onto the t-shirts, so they have a real live quality to them. See, in the past 30 years, we've devised several objects and items of clothing that enable us to withstand the assault of life in the city. So once upon a time, it was the Sony Walkman, and now it might be either headphones that also have become items of fashion, or the hoodie, or the baseball hat. All of these objects that create this metaphysical, intimate space that enables us to expand beyond the confines of the physical space. The hoodie is one one of the most important items in the exhibition because it represents so much, because it represents an item that's existed for centuries. You know, hooded garments have existed forever. It represents an item that had a new life in the modern era when Knickerbocker Knitting Company, which then became Champion, made it in Jersey for athletes, you know, before and after training. It represents an item that went from sports to fashion, actually in the 1950s with collegiate sports, when girls started wearing their boyfriend's sweater. An item that remained in fashion and then translated into hip hop and streetwear when in the 1980s, both on the East and the West Coast, kids started wearing it for slightly illicit activities. On the West Coast, because parks were close to skateboarding, and so kids were wearing hoodies to skateboard in illegal places. And on the East Coast, actually also on the West Coast, graffiti writers adopted it, and b-boys, you know, it also helped protect the neck. So it was all this sort of like streetwear applications. Then it also became this item that enabled one to actually have this kind of intimate metaphysical space in the city. And it became one of those items that are protective and that so many people feel could make them invisible. And that's where the latest and most tragic incarnation of the hoodie comes. You know, the idea that when you wear the hoodie, you're protected from the outside world. You can almost be invisible, but it's like when kids put their hands in front of their face and think their parents cannot see them anymore. To some, a hoodie is threatening, it's dangerous, and we tend to say that that's what happened with Trayvon Martin when he was shot dead by George Zimmerman in Florida. We wanted it to be a symbol of an apparently harmless and functional garment that has become incandescent from a political standpoint, to the point of also having hoodie marches. So with the slideshow in the exhibition, we portray all these different nuances, and we give context to an icon of American design, but also an icon of American politics. Streetwear has become so important in our lives. Even people that never touch the street, they're always in limos, wear streetwear, right? It's become really part of fashion. And it's hard to pinpoint when it was born, but it's so important that we really had to cover it extensively, because this exhibition is about the 111 items of clothing that really had an impact on the world in the past 100 years. So streetwear figures prominently. As long as cities will be important, as long as sports will be part of people's lives, as long as people will want to be cool, streetwear will be important. I guess that means forever.